Hi, I'm Shelby Herbal, and this is my Module 14 case study for EDL 856. So to first start off, we're going to talk about the facts of the case. There's multiple things going on here. The PTA group has changed from a national affiliated group to an independent group. The principal thinks that the PTA group does a good job with events already in place, such as parent-staff picnic and parent-teacher conferences. They have called in a meeting after they've created this new parent group, and they're talking about, the parent group is talking about how they've already put in place committees for things such as curriculum, discipline, and policies that are already in place in the school because they want more of a say within the things that are going on within the school. They do have a president who is speaking in this meeting with the principal, and he is known as it is known that he's a young attorney. The principal tries to bring up a question, and he kind of just overspeaks him, so that kind of gives off an impression about how the group wants to be perceived. They want to restructure back to school night as well, and parent-teacher night, to show more of what exactly is going on in the classroom, because they say currently it is confusing the way that it is structured for back to school night. So next, we have legal or ethical issues that we need to address. First, legal. There's no legal breach at the moment in my regard, but if they are planned to continue in the way the parent group would like, there could be a legal breach due to lack of understanding school law by parents. Also, since they are moving from a PTA, which is a national affiliated group, to an independent group, this group could face some security breaches and legal issues with that because they don't have the same, they don't have as much structure set because they're an independent group. Ethically, again, there hasn't really been an ethical breach yet. But if the plan were to continue in the way the parent group would like, it would call for an imbalance in the chain of command of the school system, because the parents are demanding, the parent group is demanding things that a normal parent group doesn't demand, and so they would be in charge and having to make decisions where they normally wouldn't in policy, curriculum, those kinds of things. So I think ethically, in terms of school culture and those kinds of things, it would be a breach if that was to continue. It also may have been an ethical breach for that parent group to create these committees without the say of administration, or without the administration backing yet. They might have counted their eggs before they hatched, in a way, because they've already put all this stuff in place without the backing or following that chain of command that is in place. And to summarize this whole situation in a sentence, I would say, in this situation, the parent stakeholders are demanding more control over the educational system instead of serving as the supportive role to that school system. And so to further explain, synthesize the facts that I know, people that we know, the principal, he enjoys the role of the PTA currently. Teachers, we don't really know a whole lot about, but they should be known in the facts that they are stakeholders who are important. The parent group, what we know about them is that the president is a young attorney, and they want administration to support the new role that is in place, and that they've created their own new parent group. And I also wanted to identify students as a known group, but maybe not, we don't know anything about them yet. Place, what we know, it talked about individual school focus over district. So I thought, and this is me inferencing here, about it possibly being a larger district, because these parents are maybe wanting to focus in on their district as its own being. And then program, what we know about is the parent program, and it wants to change the focus from school events to school decision making, policy making, curriculum changes, those kinds of things. Okay, and now we have the unknown, and there's a lot more unknown, as you can tell. And I have underlined the wording that was in our standard 10, such as communication and engagement between community members. programs, collaboration, and stuff like that. So as we go through this, some things that are unknown that I would think need to be known as the Board of Education and Superintendent. What communication do they have with parent groups? Next is teachers. How many teachers are there in the building? What is engagement like between community members and teachers? Is that a cause for a rift, and why these parents felt like they had to come up with their own decision-making body because they're not feeling heard through teachers? Parent group, why are they, and to expand in that for the parent group, why the change in wanting more control? Students, what is the age group of students? It didn't really go into much depth about what the clientele was, and so I put that in place as well for our school. It doesn't really say if it's a rural or urban district. It doesn't say if it's diverse, what type of school, what grade of students we're talking about here, what the school culture is like. Is it just that parent group that's involved, or are there maybe multiple different parent groups? Is there a booster club? Is this the only parent group? Just school culture, things like those natures, I think are important to find out in this situation. Other things, programs, are there other parent programs, like I said before, booster club, those kinds of things? Do programs collaborate with each other, such as do school programs collaborate with parent programs? What does that look like? And then, are there already curriculum programs and policy groups within the school already? Because maybe we could put in to where some parents could be a part of those or voice concerns to those curriculum programs or policy groups, or etc. Next is reviewing and prioritizing the information. So I have all that information and I just want to condense it down into this little bit. If the principal does not back parent group, it could be damaging in the ability to cultivate relationships with that group. So it's important for them to be heard because they are stakeholders within the school. Parents, students, and teachers have an important stake in this situation because it affects them on how decisions are being made and those kinds of things. The people that haven't been consulted are teachers and the superintendent, board of education, and I feel like they have been need to be consulted in this situation. Students, I don't feel like students need to be maybe consulted in this because it's the adults making the decisions for the students. But if we were in a situation where it was older students, we could maybe make a case for them having some input into this, but I wouldn't say that they would have a whole lot. I can learn more about the situation and why they want more control, or what frame of reference they could use to judge curriculum, policy, etc. And I also want what and how these groups are collaborating already. Those are important things to know because we need to know those things in order to make an informed decision about how this parent group is going to interact within the school, because we want them to be involved, because stakeholders need to be listened to so that we can have important roles for them to fulfill. I don't have enough information to make a definite decision about the topic, but I definitely have enough information in order to take steps towards a solution. And that's what we're coming up with next, is the solution, options, consequences. So I came up with 4. The first one is not making a decision. The second is consulting the Board of Education, superintendent, and teachers. Third is multiple stakeholder teams. And then our fourth is our most liberal solution, which is letting the parent group be allowed to execute their own ideas and be in control of those policy areas. Obviously, the consequences for the first and the last situations are pretty huge and detrimental, I think. There are some pros, but I feel like the cons definitely outweigh the pros, because in the first one, you're not cultivating the relationship at all. You're not helping the relationship with those parents. And so that's a detriment to school student development. And then in 4, you're giving them way too much control and power. And you're kind of getting rid of all the other stakeholders in as well, like teachers and other staff members and the students. So the other 2 ideas, consulting the Board of Education, teachers, superintendent, I would go to them and say, here is what's been presented. I think this is a good idea and this is a good idea. What do you think? And maybe take some of their ideas, solutions, and come up with that multiple stakeholder meeting as a result of that. So and I do think that there is a place for everybody to come to the table and be able to talk about curriculum and policies and decision making for student development. And I think that helps the more that people collaborate. It just needs to happen in a way that is thinking of all students. So to evaluate the options, there's pros and cons for each, like I've said before. And I can go through on all the pros and cons, but the big two that I want to pick out are the pros for the multiple stakeholder teams, which is lots of voices are heard and parents have that two-way communication and they can collaborate with a diverse group of stakeholders. So I think that is huge. But I think in order for that to first happen, you have to consult your teacher, your board of education, and your superintendent so that way they are on board with that plan. And you can use the resources and ideas that they have in order to benefit that school program. Okay, so in the end, my plan is a combination of number 2 and number 3. So what I would first do is I'd consult teachers, superintendent, board of education. I would say this new parent group has come to me and said this is what they would like to do. I think it's a great idea to have teachers present what they have planned for the semester or the 9 weeks for their students. So that way parents are understanding what their student is learning and the expectation that is held in the classroom. And it's not just a base level understanding schedule kind of thing, because I feel like the parents were getting frustrated in just having that. They want more information about what's going on in their children's education. So giving them that information would help. And then I would listen to their suggestions from the Board of Education, superintendent, teachers, see what they maybe have an idea of, and then come back to that parent group and say, okay, this is what we are going to do. I want to have these teams of strategic stakeholders, and we're going to meet once a month, and we're going to have a council to talk about topics that I'm going to bring up, or that each group of stakeholders gets to bring up one issue each month. So that way it doesn't get too, it doesn't have too much bulk to it. I mean, because if you have all those stakeholders bringing their issues, it's going to get really, really lengthy. And I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of problem solving happening in that situation, because everybody is just going to want their issues solved. So if we maybe only have 3 or 4 topics each month, then I feel like that is something that can get things solved. But I would still encourage that parent group to be in charge of the events that they're already taking on. In reflection, like over on the side, I don't think it's the place of parents to have sole decision making on what their students are learning. And it should be a collaborative process. So that's why I came up with the idea of strategic stakeholders and having that be a team committee. Because I do want them to have that two-way communication and feel heard. So the idea for teachers to present what's going on within the classroom is a wonderful idea. So I think taking that idea from that parent group and saying, yes, that is a good idea. I think we need to use that, because it's still in their realm of parent-teacher conference night. I think that is a great idea for them to feel heard and to push on their needs, but not push them down completely in their ideas, if that makes sense. Because you're supporting students with a shared vision if you're getting teachers and parents on the same side and on the same team. And I think that's super important. So the slide I used is by Slides Carnival, and I always like to give them credit because I didn't make them, but I like using the different graphics and things like that. And that is the end of my presentation, and thank you so much, and thank you for this semester.